Stung by a series of allegations of corruption at the centre, there was welcome news for the Congress party, which swept to power in Karnataka after a gap of 7 years. Riding a strong anti-incumbency wave against the BJP, the Congress crossed the halfway mark of 113, winning 120 seats. The BJP were trounced in the state, winning just 40 seats in the 224-member assembly, a whopping 70 seats less than they had won in the previous assembly elections. In fact, the JDS, led by H.D. Devegowda, equalled the tally of the BJP, also winning 40 seats, again from the previous election of 12 seats. The fledgling Karnataka Janata Party, the KJP, floated by Yediyurappa, who achieved his immediate task of causing damage to the BJP, won 7 seats. Yediyurappa won from Shikaripura by over 15,000 votes. Significantly, the KJP has eaten into many BJP constituencies, eroding its vote bank. Well, we'll come back to that big story, the results in Karnataka, in just a little while from now, but there's a lot of other big stories we are tracking. Sources say that the CBI will interrogate the Railway Minister Pawan Bansal very soon. This could be as early as the next few days. According to sources, meetings between the key accused Vijay Singla, the nephew of Pawan Bansal, and the suspended Rail Board member Mahesh Kumar apparently took place at Bansal's official residence, though Bansal's nephew still insists that his uncle is not involved. The Prime Minister will be informed before the questioning of the Rail Minister takes place.
Sir, in your meeting with the Prime Minister, did you offer?
My colleague Sunitra Chaudhary has been tracking the story very, very closely. Here's what she sent us.
Basically, the most grave implication for the Rail Minister at this juncture is the fact that the two accused, Vijay Singla, his nephew, and Mahesh Kumar, the member staff who was trying to pay a bribe to get a better promotion for himself, they had several meetings right at the Rail Minister's official residence. Now, that, according to CBI sources, shows, and in fact, that cannot be in a way, that way, even though Pawan Bansal has said that he didn't know about this, he really distanced himself from his nephew, but the fact that these meetings and these negotiations for how much money should be paid in order to get this transfer going, in order for him to go as member electrical instead of member staff, which is seen as a much more lucrative position, just implicates the Rail Minister more. There are other things, of course, as well. The other thing is that the main accused, Mahesh Kumar in this case, over the last few days has been interrogated quite rigorously by the CBI officials, and he has implicated the Rail Minister as well. In fact, what our sources are telling us is that because Mahesh Kumar's phone was under tap, because they had some information and tip-off from some sources, because his phone was tapped for the last 3 months, there are several occasions where the minister's name keeps popping up. However, of course, the CBI wants to give a rider to that. They said just because his name is constantly referred to by the accused as saying that he is the one who suggested that this money, if it is paid, then it will definitely, the work will be done, the entire transfer will be done. They say that the CBI can't just go by that thing. That's not evidence for them, the fact that he's named in the transcript. They also point out the Rail Minister's own voice is not in the transcript. So he's not calling up himself, the main accused in the case, Mahesh Kumar, and organizing this. There's no conversation between them. However, the two things are that one, official residence, second, the accused implicates him, but perhaps what the CBI has also told us, our sources have also told us, is that Vijay Singla, his nephew, the CBI is pushing him and really grilling him, but he has refused to implicate his uncle so far. His story is that this is all his plan, that his uncle Pawan Bansal is clean.
Well, let's quickly move on to the other big story we've been tracking. The Supreme Court has come down heavily on the CBI and the government and questioned whether the Law Minister can ask the CBI to show details of the probe or status report in a case involving other ministries and the Prime Minister's office. In its observations specifically on the Minister's role, the Supreme Court referred to the 1997 Vineet Narayan case, in which the court laid down guidelines for CBI transparency and said that the Law Minister has administrative powers over the CBI but cannot interfere with the investigation. The court also said that there was no justification for the Joint Secretaries of the Prime Minister's office and the Coal Ministry to peruse the CBI's draft reports and recommend changes. Nor was there any justification for the CBI to allow these officers to see the draft reports and carry out changes. The court will decide whether it is legally right for the CBI to show the report to the Law Minister. This question will be examined in the next hearing on the 10th of July. But in its very sharp observations, the top court also said that the heart of the CBI's coal report was changed at the behest of the government officials. An absolute rejection of the CBI claim that the essence of the report was unaltered despite the changes. The court said to the government, what business do you have to peruse the report? And to the CBI, how on earth could you make the report available to the government? The court also described the CBI as a caged parrot that had many masters, one parrot. The CBI must know how to stand up to pulls and pressures of the government. The court said they were pained at the CBI chief's remarks on regular interactions and said that the CBI's job is to interrogate, not to interact. Well, joining us now there's so much to discuss. We'll discuss first what the CBI had to say, what the Supreme Court had to say on the role of the CBI and of the government. Joining us, the BJP spokesperson Rajiv Pratap Rudy and the Congress spokesperson Sanjay Jha. Sanjay, what a lot of people still can't understand is that despite these very stinging observations by the Supreme Court on the role of the CBI, on the role of the government, why does Ashwani Kumar and the Congress still believe that he should remain there? Why doesn't he step down at this stage? What more is he waiting for?
Vishnu, I think the Congress can only respond when it goes through an order. As you rightly mentioned, it's a complex order. It's an important, observation made by the Supreme Court. So, for a government to respond to it, you need to go through the nitty-gritties, look at the entire implications of whatever has been stated. I also believe that, one should not look at the Supreme Court's observations from a political standpoint, which has been happening for most of the afternoon. The statements that the Supreme Court has made is been on the fact that post the Vineet Narayan judgment that happened in 1997, where even the Supreme Court has mentioned that the administrative jurisdiction may still be with the government.
But Sanjay, this is about political interference. The alleged political interference, it's not alleged anymore. I mean, it's a fact that the Law Minister did peruse a report of an ongoing case. So it is political involvement. How can you just look at it from an administrative standpoint?
I'll tell you why. Because if you read the CBI affidavit, which the director had submitted a few days ago, what had he mentioned there? I thought the crucial point that he had stated was that in his own understanding of the internal policy guidelines of the Central Bureau of Investigation, he was not aware or not clear, or there was nothing that actually provided him with any guidance as to who could he share the report with and to what extent.
So therefore, the Vineet Narayan case didn't register in the mind of the CBI. The Vineet Narayan case didn't register in the mind of the CBI.
Well, I can tell you one thing which is very, very relevant here, because I do believe that this debate has become slightly political, and that is that between 1997, when the Vineet Narayan judgment was given by the Supreme Court, till 2004, you had an NDA government led by the BJP, which did nothing immediately following the judgment.
But Sanjay,
to
it
make
is a political argument. It's not just administrative.
No, and I do believe.
Entirely political series of allegations.
No, 1 minute. Fair enough. Let me answer that.
Yes, go ahead.
That at this point, even the issues that have been made in terms of the coal allocations, the Supreme Court hasn't hinted at corruption or a manipulation.
No, this
because
is
the CBI also
impropriety on the
stated in its
basis
own case
of joint secretaries in the government and the Law Minister seeing a report on an ongoing investigation. We are not getting to who is responsible for the coal scam. We are not discussing that here. We are only discussing what is the larger issue, and we can get into minutiae over here. Is the CBI independent? And quite clearly it's not. You've got the Law Minister perusing files, and you're raising administrative issues.
Well, let me tell you.
Yes, go ahead.
But then Vishnu, I'm going by the CBI affidavit because I'm sure the CBI will be responding to what the Honorable Supreme Court has stated. But the CBI had mentioned in its last affidavit that there was no material change, that the central theme of the investigations weren't altered, that the suspects or anybody who may have committed a misdemeanor or got coal allocations in a wrong manner, that was not altered. So there are certain fundamental issues that at this point we are still preempting. Remember that the hearing continues after another 45 days when the Supreme Court restarts the entire process. And at that point, maybe there'll be a more tangible reason to believe what what is the right way forward. But there's no denying that the Supreme Court's observations are serious. They need to be observed, and it's for all political parties to ensure that the CBI functions in an independent manner.
All right, Rajiv, Rudy, one of the points that Sanjay just mentioned is that the substance of the report hasn't been altered. Do you believe on your reading of what the Supreme Court has said that is a correct interpretation?
Well, I'm just shocked and surprised at the bizarre argument put by my friend Sanjay Jha. Now he says that the Supreme Court was just having an academic discussion when he said that, look, there is a report which was submitted to us, was looked by the CBI has admitted that this report was looked in by the law minister. And the CBI and the Supreme Court says no, that this report was also looked up by the Joint Secretary in the PMO, and this report was also looked up by a Joint Secretary in the Coal Ministry. But the question arises, who was the beneficiary of all this investigation which was to be manipulated? The very fact that there are charges against the Prime Minister, who was the Minister of Coal when all this allotment took place. And when this investigation was being conducted, Supreme Court naturally believed that this matter relates to high political executive, and that was the reason and the suspicion that the investigation of the CBI against the people concerned in the coal gate should not be shared with the political executive. So what does the Supreme Court say? When the Supreme Court gets into the fact of things, it says CBI's work like this, it's like a caged parrot, it works under the masters, it's most unfortunate. And especially when the Supreme Court says what? The Supreme Court says it to the CBI, and the court it mentions that, look, here is a ministry under a scanner, the PMO is under scanner. They show the report to the accused, and the accused gets the privilege of looking into the allegations against him, and gets the privilege, where in the world, in which democracy and which investigation, the accused has a right to access the report against him. And not only there, it only is stated that the report has been manipulated, it has been changed. And this substantive observation is not from Rajiv Pratap Rudy from the BJP.
Mr. Rudy,
it's a substantive observation from the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and this is the observation. Let me read out that observation. Let me read out that observation.
Let me complete.
The heart of the CBI's coal report was changed at the behest of government officials. That's the point you're mentioning. That's what the Supreme Court today observed.
But this does not register with Mr. Sanjay Jha, because he's talking about something. I do not know whether he's a spokesperson of the Congress party or a freelance journalist, but he's trying to position himself as a leader of as a spokesperson of the Congress party. Very good. But another point which I would like to raise here is, who is the beneficiary of all this manipulation? The Prime Minister himself. And this is exactly the charge which we are raising against the Prime Minister. And how long can we absolve the Prime Minister of this accountability? Because he is the man occupying that chair. Now, once the Supreme Court has said, you see, they said we are not like Pakistan or one of those countries where the Supreme Court is giving directions and making the Prime Ministers quit or putting them behind bars. Here is a mature democracy. They expect, now the Congress friends are waiting for the time when the Supreme Court of India would intervene to say, remove this, sack this law minister, remove this. The Supreme Court is not going to come that level. The Supreme Court knows its responsibility.
It's not the job of the Supreme Court to be sacking officials.
Why is the situation? Suppose if the Supreme Court was not there, all what the government wanted to do is that report they could have fabricated.
All right, Rajiv, you made lots of points. Let Sanjay Jha respond to a few of them.
Now, with the Supreme Court in position of all these facts and documents, thanks to the Supreme Court, that the country is yet aware what was happening in the government.
All right, lots of points,
and this matter
Rajiv.
relates to the Prime Minister.